Okay, I think we're live. Let me check the feeds. Man, all right, here we go. Uh-oh, we are live in the house. We are doing pretty much all the big cities. So I'm in NYC right now. We have the stud, Bobby Callahan, holding down LA, Elise Decamp in Miami, and then Rashib in SF. But I kind of jumped the shark there. Let's go around the horn with a little bit of intros. Also, listeners, welcome, or watchers, welcome to the seminar series, where we're going to tell you all things awesomeness about how to make your marketing make you more money. With that being said, Bobby, give the listeners a little bit of background, the elevator pitch, let them know who you are.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah, my name is Bobby Callaghan. I run an agency called Retentio. So that's the word retention without the N. So yes, we do retention marketing. E-commerce brands, 7 and 8 figures. Naturally, I've kind of niched into like subscription brands. So 70% of our clients are subscriptions. So love jamming on that. And yeah, I think the email playbook is quite old. And so I'm trying to come in here with a little bit of youth and evolve it and push it forward and make email fun again. So I think it's overlooked and there's a lot of details to it. And that's kind of how I like to come to these conversations. It's just chat, email.
I love it.
Wait, can I just say something really quick? Bobby, when you said that, it sounded like it's like retention without the end. And it's like, that's right. When you have good retention, there is no end.
Let's go. Got to put that on the website.
This guy's good. This guy's good. He's just started a company. Absolutely, Bobby. And one of my favorite jokes is my email marketer quit, and now my Facebook ads suck. So it's all an ecosystem.
Let's go. I love that.
Elise Decamp, welcome to the show. Give people a little bit of a bio, intro, all the things.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I like that Bobby said making email fun. We're trying to make loyalty and retention fun, more gamification, which does feel like a little bit of a word that gets thrown around a lot these days. But yeah, one of the co-founders of Toki. We've been doing this for about 2 years now. And are really tackling all parts of the retention funnel with loyalty, memberships, and referrals.
Love that. Yeah. And the big boss man, it's to you.
Yeah, so I'm Rishabh. I'm one of the co-founders of FERMÁT, where what's our new line? We create funnels the same way you create ads. And so
close-ish.
Oh no, I got it wrong.
It's okay. We'll work on it.
All right. Basically, for your post-click experience, just making it customized to every piece of content that you launch. And one of the biggest areas that we have found makes a big impact is actually setting up the acquisition funnel in a way in which drives high LTV or high retention. And so that's one of the things that I'm excited to be talking about in particular today.
Yeah, well, actually, that's a perfect segue. Let's jump in. So for everybody watching, basically the run of show is going to be, we're essentially just going to walk through all stages of the funnel. So top of funnel, where you're getting in front of the right people with the right message at the right time. Then we're really going to go into new customer acquisition, the shopping experience, and then obviously delve deep into the post-purchase experience, retention, etc. But on that, I'm going to kind of just jump in. Like, how do we think, or Rashib, I'll actually start with you, and then I'll give the guests, and then we'll go to you, Elise, and Bobby, you'll finish up. How do you think of that in terms of, and I know we're a little bit different in terms of B2B SaaS, but what's the right messaging at the right time for the right person? Like, how is that the paradigm you use, or what is the frameworks that you start to think about when you really want to maximize your customer acquisition, in specific new customer acquisition?
Yeah, so I guess at least when I think about new customer acquisition for SaaS companies, the only thing that matters is retention. So, and I'm sure Elise probably relates, and actually Bobby running an agency probably relates too. It's like, you really don't want to reacquire a business. Like, that's super expensive, right? Consumer acquisition is expensive, but business acquisition is ridiculously expensive. So the whole thing is basically based on how do you figure out who is a good customer, who's going to be a good customer. And so like a big thing that we do is we try to qualify very carefully before saying yes to any new customers. So, and this might be a little like extreme, but like, for example, in our demo form, if we're not going to be able to make you successful, we won't even set up a meeting. Right. And it's just to like be respectful of both people's time. And so it doesn't even like show up in our funnel past like that initial touch point. And now what we do want to do, however, is make sure that we give that person value.
Yes.
So like my biggest framework around this is, even if they're not qualified to be a customer of yours today, how do you give them value today such that when it is time for them to become a customer, they still actually have a positive view of you? So at least like on the B2B side, that's how I think about it. But I'm sure Elise and Bobby have like way more insight that they can share on the B2C side. So
yeah,
Elise, go for it.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's just all about capitalizing on the dollars spent on advertising. And so I think like we have been in this world of e-com, you know, the pop-up has existed for like whatever 10 years now, as long as I've been in the industry. And I think that, you know, fortunately our tactics around like lead capture from that have evolved in a way that is more sophisticated due to audience segmentation. And so that's a lot of what we talk to our customers about. We take a very consultative approach to this and considering strategically how you can capture someone for later if they're not going to make that purchase right now. And we've really done a lot of testing around how that can be improved with store credit, with more engaging kind of action items versus just asking for email. And there's a lot of tools out there outside of us that kind of focus on that. And so I think that that's just an important strategy overall, is to A/B test, you know, that lead capture and to do something that's more creative and on brand for you in order to, to get that person over to that next step. Because it's all about incentivizing them to that next step, no matter where they are. And so we've got lots of different tools along the way, but you got to make sure you're setting up appropriately and it's speaking to that right segment.
I love that. Bobby, where do you land?
Is kind of squeaking, so I apologize. I'm gonna go on mute.
That's so funny. Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of that, I really believe if you try to sell to everybody, you're going to sell to nobody. Yep. I think on the B2B side and B2C side, even as an email agency, like coming in and be like, hey guys, I'm a retention agency, it's kind of weak, right? And so I'm really going through this exercise on the agency side where it's, you know, we've naturally been working with subscription brands. So we're going to change some of our positioning around that, where it's like, yeah, we're a retention agency, but we're a retention agency for subscription brands or whatever the case is. And so that's how I'm trying to practice that on the B2B side. On the B2C side, it's the same thing. It's like talking about subscription brands, if you want to get someone to subscribe to a physical product, like that product has to fit into their lifestyle. And everyone has a different lifestyle. And like you got to be really specific in the lifestyles that you're trying to sell this product to. And if you can nail that, it's almost like product market fit. It's like product lifestyle fit. If you get those two things together, someone will subscribe. And if they're on the right cadence, they're just going to accept it as part of their lifestyle. And so getting really specific, to me, is where great acquisition comes from. There's so much noise nowadays, and you got to pierce through that with like specificity. And so that's kind of where I land on that one.
Can I ask a follow-up to Elise from what she was saying? So I was curious, like when you said that, you know, we've had pop-ups for ever now, and there's like a lot of different ways that you can think about how do you drive that initial acquisition. How do you think about like first of all, what are the different formats somebody should consider? And then second of all, once you acquire different cohorts, how do you think about which are the cohorts that you want to like try to pull in to purchase you today versus like 6 months from today, or once a trigger of some variety happens? Like, I guess, like what frameworks do you use in terms of when somebody is like ready to move from in my email list, for lack of a better phraseology, to current customer, basically?
Phraseology, damn, bringing it, coming in hot. Okay. I think like there's a few things. There's like first the baseline layer of like the brand and what the AOV is and how exclusive that brand is. Like there's a lot of brands that we work with that are more focused on non-dilutive types of action items to capture that first point of contact, because they're just not focused on diluting the equity of their brand and also like the products that they're selling. And so that's like kind of a first layer to think about when thinking about this decision. And so that, with that in mind, I think there's different, you can go the route of quiz, survey, poll, which are kind of different. That quiz has like a right answer, poll doesn't, survey doesn't. And so quiz is something that could apply if you're a brand that's more playful or like in the gaming category. You could ask a question like, you know, what creator did we do our last collaboration with? Like, if let's say like PSD underwear or something like that. That direction, like get this right and get, you know, 10% off your order or something like that, versus like a, you know, more, what is your dog's name? How old are they type of thing, which is more collection, like information gathering. So I think like all of that is just directly correlated to like who you are as a brand and starting to open up that like two-way dialogue versus that one directional dialogue that I think has been so common, again, the past 10 years. It's just been like, take the 10%, take the 10%. And it's like, we're now in a world where it's a conversation, or it should be a conversation. And consumers should feel like they're personally being taken care of without like taking, you know, obviously we can't have a personal concierge for every consumer. Maybe we can with AI, but like get kind of heading down that path. So that then I think that leads to kind of your second question of like, well, then how do you decide what type of, like, when to give a discount from there to like take that next step to get people to convert. And I think that, I don't think we have like a good answer on that yet. I think that takes predictive modeling that I like would love to get into. I think that's where, you know, there's an open gap in the market for that. There really isn't a ton of, you know, I don't know. Maybe you did. I don't know. Do you know of anyone that's like kind of doing that?
Rob, I guess, how do you think about it? Yeah.
Yeah, prescient AI is the closest, because for me, predictive modeling is the same, but different as probabilistic attribution versus deterministic attribution. And so, like, not to get too nerdy, but deterministic is basically looking at what people do, or probabilistic is looking at data sets and finding very, very high correlations that are hopefully causal. And then you can start to model stuff out. So like mixed media modeling, et cetera, is really based off of more probabilistic than it is deterministic attribution. So a good friend of mine, we actually, on our sister show, The Equation of Excellence, just talked to Michael True at Prescient, who is kind of basically trying to do this, where Prescient will tell you where you were, where you are, where you could go, and then where you really could go if you change things, kind of stuff. And I totally agree with you, Elise. I think that gets into some really interesting places really quickly, and is a perfect application for AI, especially if you have the data. Yep. But yeah, that's super well said. Great questionership as well. Bobby, what do you see in terms of like, because you're sitting across a ton of email, SMS, direct mail. One, what do you see for those channels, and how do you treat them differently? And then just kind of give us the pros and cons in terms of email, SMS, direct mail, and how do you orchestrate those all in tandem? Because they're all like, again, same, but different channels, right? Like email is a very volume friendly channel. SMS is not. Direct mail is really interesting, but sometimes it doesn't make sense, or it's really kind of more of this congratulatory play, right, than it is actually revenue generating. So if I'm coming to you, I'm selling Rashib Happy Pills, how are you going to consult me in terms of those three channels?
Yeah. So off the bat, I would say in most cases, like, you should be sending more emails. So back to what you're saying about the volume play, a lot of problems get solved by just sending more emails. Of course, you want to make sure deliverability is good, your segments are clean, whatever. But from like a content perspective, like, yeah, email is pretty cluttered, and you can kind of contribute to that as long as you're sending good content and often, like, it'll be effective. Now, if you're sending a lot of emails that are junk or salesy, it's just there's gonna be a fatigue to it. But if you can really get into this world of sending good content, then you don't have to be afraid to send it often. And then a caveat to that is you don't want to fall for offer fatigue. So if you are going to send a lot of content or a lot of emails, you don't want to play this game of discounting your brand and letting people get used to the fact that you're going to give them an offer. And so kind of that jab hook mentality is like, send really good content and try to figure out what that means for you. And then when the time is right, go for that hook. And that's kind of where SMS can help kind of add weight to the hook is you're not going to be sending content through SMS. One, it's expensive, and two, people are going to get really annoyed because they really notice it in that inbox. And so to me, SMS just adds weight to that hook when you're ready to kind of swing with email. You swing with SMS at the same time. And that's kind of how I think about it. Basically, a lot of our strategies is really trying to nail that content piece on the email side, because then we can send more often. And then when we do send a hook, it's going to be more meaningful. And so using those two together, direct mail is, it's kind of like very win back, obviously very post purchase. You can only get the address in that case scenario. And so there's this thing called a zombie. And so what a zombie is someone that you can't get to via digital send. So they're not opening my emails, they're not opening my SMSs. They qualify as what's called a zombie. And so what you can do with your list is you can run what's called a zombie report, and you can see like, oh, 40% of my lists are zombies. Like they're not kind of reacting to these other channels. So let me get my zombie cohort and let me try and win them back, right? And so you can try to do those email re-engagements, but they might not be responding to that. And so, that's where we use direct mail to really get to these people. We just can't do so. And so
you know what we call somebody who doesn't reply to email, SMS, or Slack?
What?
Rubber.
I apply to your SMS.
That's fair. That's fair. But
you gotta send them direct mail. You gotta send them direct mail.
Yeah. So
yeah, exactly.
Did you see? That's what Michael did for Michael Epstein did that for April Fools. He had a whole campaign around send Rubber direct mail because
that's hilarious.
Good.
Well, that's exactly how I think about it too. If you can't get them with email and SMS, time for a direct mail.
I love that.
I did have a serious question though. So you started to share that like the actual content strategy was around email. So email is a place where you can like entertain and educate. But then when you want to hook, you go to SMS. Why? And from your perspective, and Rubba also, like, I mean, you've worked with a ton of brands directly too, man. So I'm curious to get both of you guys to weigh in. Like, how do you think about medium when it comes to what the job of the medium is? And why did you choose? I mean, you said it kind of like in passing as if it's obvious that you should use SMS for the hook. And I just want to better understand what led to that outcome.
Yeah, I think people are very conscious of SMS, and it's very easy to annoy them. And so it's like, it's not worth saying something in the SMS channel unless it's actually worth saying. Like, you don't want to annoy people. It's like if I'm texting my mom and someone's just annoying me in that same inbox, it's like, it's an intimate channel. And so if I don't have something worth saying, I'm not going to say it. And so to me, it's like those big offers or big moments that I'm trying to create through education and entertainment. I kind of use the email channel to build up hopefully some sort of hype and momentum so that I have something worth saying. And then I use that intimate channel for that. And so kind of that intimacy piece is kind of my answer. Curious what Robert thinks.
No, I mean, this is the exact same learnings that we came across when I was working at the agency, where SMS was not the channel to be cute. So I would always split test like fun little messaging and then super vanilla, like here's the offer, here's what you're going to get, here's the link to buy. And never even got close with the cute messaging. The other thing is, like, you start throwing gifts in and stuff like that, there actually starts to become like, I mean, it's not like end of the world unit economics breakage, but it starts to pervert the unit economics if you start to get some pretty big lists. And so for me, it was basically how Bobby's seen it. It's very, it's just almost an intimate, like you said, an intimate activation channel, or excuse me, an intimate activation channel where it's just like just meat and potatoes. But that, I mean, obviously definitely test, but for the brands that we were looking for, the SMS was just, I don't want to say money grabs in the sense, but because we had sequences as well as one-off sends, but we could never, I never, and I sat across, I was 5 to 7 brands, like we could never get anything cutesy to work or verbose. It was just straight to the point. Here's what's up. And that worked out really well. And then we had a really sensitivity to, again, that send ceiling where we just weren't hit. Like, we would send a lot of emails candidly, but we would send maybe 3 to 4 SMSs every month. And that was on the high end. where sometimes we would just do one sort of monthly sale or monthly promotion is probably a better way to say it. And then we'd send it out on that, but it'd be on the back of an email campaign. So almost like to Bobby's point, like we had that hierarchy of we wanted to get them in email. If we couldn't get them in email, we'd get them in SMS, and then we would use Postpilot on basically really big campaigns or getting in front of big spenders that had then kind of died off. So yeah, I'm getting the producer in my ear to turn up the heat because we don't have enough disagreement yet. But that's how I see it. Elise, do you have any other
I just
perspective
have
on
a
it?
question, not really, but question for the room, push notifications. How do we feel?
I don't have push notifications on any apps other than iMessage, so I couldn't tell you.
Wow.
Yeah. And email. Yeah. Email, Slack, and iMessage. That's it. Those are the only 3 apps on my phone that have push notifications.
It's too bad that like we actually can't get that data. So we integrate with them with Apple Wallet passes, and we cannot tell if someone has turned them on or off, which is a huge bummer. The lack of data is very frustrating.
Yeah, the push notifications, I think, are like the dream was sold a lot harder than the reality. I think in certain areas it matters really well, but the infrastructure needed was a lot, and then you have to jump through all these hoops. It kind of became, I don't know if you guys ever played with like chatbots or ManyChat back in the day, but it kind of became like there was so much risk to this platform that like, why do I want to keep investing in it? Because I don't know if you're just going to pull the rug out from me. Because like ManyChat got like that, where you weren't allowed to touch somebody unless there was like these 24-hour locks and all these things. And you're like, man, I'm putting all this effort into this platform, and what am I going to get out of it? Versus an SMS campaign is pretty easy peasy. So I don't know. That's a really good question. I think it's more applicable, candidly, to app developers, because there's this huge rigmarole of all the notifications you can send. I mean, it's almost like doing your taxes. It's a really interesting. I don't know. I need to chew.
You know what I've heard from? I don't know if this is useful or not, but Rabba and I know this guy Eric Seifert. He's mostly in the game space prior to this, and now he's like a ads analyst essentially, or like an ad tech analyst.
Podcast.
Cool.
Yeah. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
I think he said it somewhere, if I'm not misremembering, that like for most game developers, I think they found that more than once a day is too noisy for push notifications. I don't know if that's very helpful, but yeah, I would say that's like roughly what I've heard. Yeah, Bobby, I don't know what your perspective is.
Yeah, the only thought I really have is like thinking about it on the spectrum of, I guess the word that we're using is intimacy or noise. It's like you can send a lot of emails, you can't really send as many SMSs. It seems like push notification lands in the middle.
In the same,
yeah. But candidly, yeah, it seems like a lot of lift, but it's definitely underutilized. Like if someone can crack that code, it's like, that's awesome. Just haven't really seen it that much. So it's kind of my only input.
Elise, I'm curious. Do people who have registered for your brand's loyalty program, are they more willing to receive a higher frequency of intimate messages? So like texts. So if you were to measure text message receipt, like ability, is it higher for people in your loyalty program?
Can you guys have me back like in a month, and I'll like to
I should have told you beforehand. I'm sorry.
July 10th. Yeah.
I have an answer that might be similar. Subscribers that are subscribed to a physical product are actually opening sometimes less than prospects. So they kind of set their subscription and they kind of don't read the emails as much anymore. So it's kind of an interesting.
So interesting.
Yeah,
that is interesting. It's
not by much, by enough. Where it made me think of that question there.
Wow, you heard it here first.
You heard breaking news, people. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Okay, so Elise, I gave Bobby all this money. His email agency got me all these clients. Now what can I do with these clients? How can I get learnings from them? How do I set up my loyalty, my rewards, my membership programs? Like, what do I start to think about now? Rishabh's Happy Pills. It's going gangbusters. Now what do? I have this huge concentration of awesome people that have showed the highest level of intent, aka purchase. now how do I get more awesomeness, not only out of them, but also generate value for them as well post-purchase?
Yeah. Oh, post-purchase. I mean, I think there's integrating a bunch of that into your email flows. So the post-purchase flow, and just wherever you can, you're introducing like the referral program. The referral program, the affiliate program, if you're doing that.
Yeah.
A really key one that we don't see enough people do that we're pushing on all of our onboarding is a complete profile activity. So every brand should have a profile in their customer account, and the profile is asking, again, for details, like I said before. So if you're like a pet food brand, you're asking the name of the dog, how many dogs, how old the dogs are, if you live in an apartment or house, what they like to do. Do they like walks? Do they like squeaky toys? Whatever. Getting all that data on the profile. So again, those are customer properties that you can use in your email segmentation for any flows that you set up. And so you're incentivizing for the completion of the profile. You're doing that post-purchase. That can either be done in the post-purchase email flow or on the order confirmation page. But that's just kind of like low-hanging fruit that I feel like everyone should be doing, that we're just kind of starting to crack the code on that. We're seeing more people do that over and over again. So that's something that's like super easy.
Could I ask a quick follow-up question on that? Because I love that. How do you back into those questions? Are you thinking like, hey, we want to send somebody a, happy birthday thing, or we want to send them a dog toy, or like how are you backing into those questions? Are those questions like, oh, I want to know this about my consumers, or are they like, oh, I want to do X or Y or Z campaign, and I need, Z kind of information to accomplish these campaigns?
All about the upsell and the LTV, like all about whatever product you're coming out with next. Like if you're coming out with like sleep gummies next, you want to understand if this person has a problem with their sleep. If you're coming out with like a greens powder next, like you want to get a sense of, are they doing yoga, or are they like doing, CrossFit? All kind of like leading questions. This is a good question. It's all like leading questions to get to the answer of what product can I sell them next, which sounds very conniving, but like that's what we're all doing here anyways, right? It's just all about getting into that next product that they're going to like too. And so like if there's a way for it to feel, you don't want it to feel pushy. You want it to feel like either you are asking for this information because you are going to give them something that they're going to be happy about, or you take the path of like, we're developing this next product and we want you to like it, or we want you to be a part of it. And so like either one of those pathways, it's about like communicating it in like a non-salesy way, but directionally headed towards products that you're thinking about pushing them next.
I like that. That.
Is that conniving? Is that wrong?
No, I would say, I mean, in my opinion, personally, this is just peanut gallery, all marketing is manipulation. And so you should just be doing it in a way that is always value for value, where instead of saying, hey, what's the next product they should buy? It's like, hey, what's the next product or service that would generate more value in their life or make their life that much better? And I think that is a very non-conniving way of selling. So I'm totally aligned there.
I like that.
Rashib, you're being awful quiet over there. What's going on? You always throw these heaters in. You're
You know what I wanted to say, and then I decided to keep my mouth shut. So now I'm going to say it anyway. Was that this is why happy pills are a bad business, because once you're happy, you have nothing else to sell.
Quasi, but how do you square that with dating apps, right? The challenge is, I think it's really interesting when you have the outcome is actually or a positive outcome is actually disadvantageous to the business. I think are so interesting to me.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I got married before the dating. I got married before the whole dating app thing took off. So now I've really got nothing for you. I'm out.
I'm just awkwardly waiting. Bobby, I'm going to throw this one to you. How do you think of testing messaging and content through your email and SMS channels?
Yeah. So kind of like Elise was talking about a lot about zero-party data, like collecting things and using that to guide decisions. At the end of the day, the same way you want to release products that bring value to customers, it's like we want to bring content that it meets them in the way they want to consume it. So is it very visual? Is it long form? Like we've had brands where like kind of more direct response, longer copy was better, whereas visuals was better for a different brand, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm always surprised like which brand audience favors something, because at a certain point I was like, oh, I think guys like longer copy. Maybe girls like visuals, or I start to get into these dances where I'm like trying to figure out what I think the data is telling me. But at the end of the day, like for each brand, you have to go through the exercise yourself, because one brand that might have a very similar audience, even if something is a little bit different, they might be wanting a different content piece. And so I think the less you try to like think you know what your audience wants, the better, and the more they can hopefully tell you in some fashion. The same way Elise was saying, it's like you want, like that's what zero party data is. It's they're telling you, they're giving you that input. And so if you can facilitate tests in a way where it's like you're not like putting your judgment into it, and you're just trying to facilitate in a way where the data is telling you the right answer, that's where I fall. I don't want to guess. I want them to tell me, and then I'll just kind of follow that. So as in them, as in the audience. So
yeah. Totally tracking.
Yeah, I mean, we found I mean, just to jump off of that, Bobby, we found exactly that with the brands who we work with. Is what works for one brand does not necessarily dictate what works for another brand. It's just like another idea to put into the suite of ideas that you need to test, and you have to just test everything. It's like something as simple as, hey, should I have my PDP default to a subscription or to the one-time purchase?
Yeah.
Guess what? There's no right answer. There's only whatever ends up being true for your company and your consumer base. Is it better if I sell a 3-pack or one? Right? So it's like the argument for one is that you have to replenish faster. The argument for a 3-pack is that it's better for habit building, right? So it's like you have 3 months supply. They'll build the habit by the end of those 3 months. And it's like, but the counter is also the problem, right? With the 1-pack, it's like, hey, do they attrit after 1 month? And with the 3-pack is like, Rabah has talked about this often. Is it just sitting on my shelf and therefore I have no desire to reorder, right? Because I just see so much supply of it that I just am like nervous that I actually don't need anymore. And so it's like, there's all of these different variables. Yeah, that we have seen over and over again that there is no one size fits all. You just have to know what is the variable bank that you need to test against. And you have to test what works for you, your product, and your audience, because yeah, different people will habit build in different ways, like you guys were saying.
That's so spot on. And honestly, I've canceled more subscriptions because of mismatched consumption cycle than I have because I was unhappy with the product.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of crazy to think about, right?
Absolutely.
Where it's like that, like the product was great, but I just the consumption cycles were just mismatched, and it was a challenge. We haven't gone a ton into economics, so I want to talk a little bit about AOV. I'm going to start with you, Bobby, and then Elise, and then Rashib. How do you think of AOV when you're structuring your content? Is that even a concern? Is that like, are you trying to get specific people into specific products? Like, how do you inch them into a subscription? Like, how are you thinking of, driving more net revenue? Like, I guess, what are the frameworks or paradigms, or how are you structuring that, Bobby? And then I'll go to you, Elise.
Yeah, I would say like if there's AOV and LTV, like I'm skewing towards thinking about LTV. And so when I'm thinking about selling things, it's like an OTP, just a one-time purchase. It's like, how do I get them to just discover things? And then once they find the thing they like, they'll kind of, because product is most of retention, right? And so let's say I'm selling like pastries and there's 4 different flavors. I'm concerned, like, how do I get them on that variety pack so that they try one of each flavor so that naturally they move into like a natural retention. As a retention marketer, obviously I do things and I have a service I can provide, but like I'm just like extracting like it's very natural, the retention. Like it should feel natural because the product is great and the consumption cycles are matching up or whatever. Like when I feel that headwind, it's like, oh, like something's not right. And so if I'm getting someone to get a blueberry pastry and they just didn't like it, my percent chance of extracting more value is way less. And so for me, it's like, no, I want them to try blueberry, strawberry, blah, blah, blah in the 4-pack. And so I want to push that. And so I'm just thinking about discovery and not as much about AOV, but like, how do I get them to try a breadth of things, find that thing they love, and then the act of extracting LTV feels more natural. So,
I love that. Elise, where do you land on it?
It's really important to us because, well, let me take a step back because it's kind of related to our last topic. Like the way we look at retention is like the tools that we have as marketers. These are tools that we have as marketers. We have loyalty programs, we have membership programs, we have subscription programs. Each are a tool in a toolkit. And there's like this common conversation happening in commerce right now that like loyalty programs are bad, paid membership programs are good. And I think it's hilarious because it's like not true. It's just that the fact of the matter is like you have many different types of customers. You have to incentivize them different ways.
Mhm.
And some brands, if you look at their data, we do these data dumps, analyze all their data. Some are much better fit for a paid membership program because 60% of their customers have purchased over 3 times. Other ones, not the case. It's the curve looks the exact opposite. And so anyways, it's all to say the way we look at it is like you do a data analysis, it's going to spit out an answer as to where you're a better candidate for loyalty, a membership, subscription program, maybe a combination of a couple. And ACV comes into play in the structure of the loyalty program. It really determines what your tier structure should be, if you should have 3 tiers, 4 tiers, and where the cutoff should be, because ultimately you want your second tier to be right around where your ACV is. So I don't know, that was like a really long answer for saying like the data analysis matters in determining which tools you should be using to get to the incentives that we all want, which is like we just want more people to make that second purchase. We want then those second purchasers to subscribe, and ideally we want those subscribers to get a paid membership. And the more you can have towards the end of that funnel, the better. But it's a process depending on how old your brand is and how much community you've built over that period of time. And so it's important to have people like Bobby and people that have been doing this a long time that can look at your data and tell you like, all right, this is what's good for you. And this is what tools we're going to use to like get you there.
This might sound very spicy, so you guys can tell me if we should not do this. But if I'm a marketer and it's like, hey, the average lifetime of a marketer on this team is 9 months, and you come to me with one of 3 tools and you're like, one of these tools is called a paid membership. It'll immediately add $20 to every order right now, and you're not going to be here in a year anyway. Which tool am I buying?
Mm-hmm.
You see the problem? Like, I think a problem with a lot of these like tools in the toolkit and long-term views, and Bobby, I'm like very curious what your view is here on this, but it's like the problem is like the incentive of the user or the buyer versus the incentive of the business. It might be like dramatically misaligned. And it's like, how do you guys think about navigating that conversation? Yeah. And you can say like, Rishabh, man, what did you do? Let's not talk about this. but it's like, I'm genuinely curious, right? It's like, I think about this a lot, and Mike Manheimer is going to get really mad at me now, but I think about this a lot with like cashback versus store credit.
Yeah.
Right. Or like % off versus like credit. And it's like, as a consumer, % off, I know ultimately is actually the thing that I'm going to enjoy more from a store. And like in the very short term, I might get enticed by a higher amount for store credit, but I'm never going to do it again once I realize I don't use it. Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Spicy.
Who's jumping on the grenade?
Yeah, spicy. So like just to isolate the prompt is basically you're saying like the marketer pitching the toolkit to be used, but that doesn't align with what's best for the consumer.
I'm just saying that like the time frame. So Elise was making this great point that when you have different tools, you have loyalty, you have paid membership, you have different tools, right? The problem is that a lot of these tools, you don't know what's most effective because their effect is actually most seen in a long-term time horizon, which is usually over a year.
Yes.
Right? Especially like a habit building product. And so I guess what I'm asking is how do you square that in terms of what is best for the business versus and I don't mean this to be facetious, but like it is true that CMO churn at brands is very fast, right? Like the buyer, it is unfortunately a high churn position, right? And so how do you guys think about squaring that tension in terms of like make the CMO look good versus what's best for the business?
Yeah, I think I try to balance those things out equally, where it's like, what are we doing now to extract value versus how are we planting seeds to make sure that the future is good. I think that with me, like with the retention marketing, it's very easy to come in and be like, let's plant all these seeds that we like harvest later. And it's like brands are like, oh, but like, what's that direct impact that we can see today? Yes. And so it's like, it's like planting seeds for a future versus harvesting right now is like, it's hard because the more you harvest right now, the better you kind of look, but the more you plant seeds later, the more you can actually sustain like providing a great service. A direct way I can explain this is like, we have lists that have fatigue. I was talking about offer fatigue. I could just go and rip emails per week and just be doing sales, but then eventually we're going to hit that offer fatigue wall. And it's like, it's hard because not that I challenge my clients, but I do try to be like, I really think we shouldn't do that because eventually this list is going to like evaporate or die, or maybe we're not getting enough new email contacts to sustain this level of offer fatigue. And so that eventually like there's going to be this huge hangover that happens that like I can do everything I can to keep sending emails and keep fulfilling my service, but my service is no longer effective because I can't extract any more value. And so I try to like 50-50 it, where it's like, okay, like, yeah, let me try and be a little bit more aggressive right now, even if there's gonna be a little bit of hangover or a little bit of fatigue. But I also try to be like, all right, we did that. Now let's relax a little and be very valuable to our audience and plant those seeds for future harvest. And so it's kind of a vibe. Like obviously during Q4, it's like a lot of harvesting, and then it's very easy for me to be in Q1. Like, all right, we did that. We're experiencing a hangover now. Please, let's just plant seeds. And so I try to like go with those ebbs and flows. But yeah, it's a wrestle, like, or it's a tug of war constantly because everyone's trying to get results right now.
We got a question come in from this, which I love. So I'll toss it to both Bobby. Oh, there we go. Rava, hit us.
Yeah, so the question is from Amza Aim. I hope I didn't butcher your name. If a brand is able to expand into other categories, multiple launches per year, is it not better to be aggressive? Question mark.
Yeah, I think per brand, everything is different. So I think that's a good caveat here is in general, you don't want to be aggressive because you want to plant seeds to harvest later. But yeah, I think if you're expanding into other categories, you kind of have different cohorts that you're selling to, that if you're being aggressive, it's not like if I'm Ridge Wallets and I kind of know who has my wallets, know who does my bags, know who does, like they're different people. It's not like one person is like getting hit with all four of that level of aggression. And so maybe and this is kind of a hypothesis, is like when you have other categories or multiple launches, you can start to like segment out different types of customers and be aggressive towards different people in different ways. So you're not like ultimately fatiguing each individual, but I'm curious what you guys think.
My general view is that this thing is it is like fundamentally a high tension question of like, how much do you harvest today? Because like, something you could do if you were Ridge is like try to cross sell right out the gate, right? It's just like, hey, you bought the wallet, you must need suitcases and pens and what I mean? I mean, I'm not, that would be a horrible message. I'm not a marketer, but it's like, you could try to cross sell very quickly versus just sort of bring them into the ecosystem and the story and things like that, and keep affinity really high over a long period of time. So I struggle with this, honestly. My view, just for what little it's worth, is I think you have to do both. I think you have to make the CMO look amazing, and you have to give them the ammo that they need to get the buy-in to make the long-term investment. And I actually think that that's the primary job. And so I was being a little bit like, spicy intentionally, but I think like the job to do is like give them the ammo that allows them, and which is Bobby, honestly sounds like what you're doing. It's like give them the ammo to get the permission to then make the long-term investment that's good for the business. And then everybody actually wins. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm very much in that vein. So a few things here. I think aggression is like a very emotionally loaded term where I think that's not the great way to look at it. I think like touch points. How many touch points can I still create value for my users? And Bobby, I used to run a account, and we did just this where we shifted to a new email agency, and we looked at the plan. Okay, this sounds great, and they took our sends from like twice a week to like 4 or 5 times a week. And the first month it absolutely slayed, but then I started getting into the actual like details of the metrics, and I was like, oh my god, dude, like our unsubscribe rate and net new ads to the list is getting decimated because we're just getting so much churn from all this. And so that first month it looked amazing because I was in the paid media, and then I started looking, I was like, these results look a little too good to be true. Let me look into this. And there was just absolute haircuts to the list size, to the open rate. Unsubscribe rate shot up, spam complaints went up. So I think it's definitely a balance. And I would also kind of to Rashib's point, this is not your decision. This is the brand owner's decision. You need to just bring them the framing of like, okay, cool. Here's some scenarios that we can do. Do you want instant impact with no long-term building? Do you want instant impact? And then also, and like, you just have to be, straight up where it's like loyalty might not have like, direct line impact where a membership could, or things of that nature. So I think it's a little bit of a nuanced question in terms of, for me, the aggressions. But going to Amza's point, I have a thesis around LTV where I just don't, I think people have like a pre-built-in potentiality for them, aka LTV, and I think it's very hard to move that. There's a couple things that can happen. So like macroeconomic stuff, whether it's like the COVID bump or somebody actually gets a better job, so they now have more money. And the other thing is obviously subscriptions. And the tertiary or third thing is product launches, because I have new things to sell you. But if they're not really related, then that product launch doesn't really allow me to increase my aggression, because if they're like super orthogonal products, I don't know where that alignment comes up. So I think that's why you see Ridge launching all these products, because the challenge when you have, an indestructible wallet, how many are you going to buy? Maybe you have a little bit of a gifting vector, but your LTV is really capped, because I literally, even if you want to buy more stuff, I can't sell you anything. And so I think a lot of this just revolves around, one, I would take proposals to the brand owner just to be like, hey, here's what's going on. Like, here's the ways we can play it, but this is your call. And then two, they're almost always, like everything, going to be a function of the physics of the business, aka the economics. How much cash do they have? Do they want to float things? Is loyalty or quote unquote like brand equity something important, or do they just want to print money? Because there's some brands that really put, brand perception over revenue generation sometimes. And again, that's okay. Like if you're an agency, or if you're not the CMO or the owner, candidly, these aren't your decisions. Your job is to bring the best battle plans to the general and let him and her decide what bets they want to make. But that's a little bit of a hedged answer, but that's kind of just where I land.
Yeah. Elise, I know we have in our notes here from when we were like sort of planning earlier. I would love to hear your deep dive, since I teased the store credit thing. Like get your view on store credit for future purchases and various other like reward and loyalty program strategies that you think about when you think about like what is the right way to drive effectiveness, both for immediate impact and for longer term value to the brand.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're landing on is like, well, I guess, yeah, spicy takes. I think cash back, like we facilitate cash back outside of, for whatever activity you want it to be used for. I think like cash back has been used for affiliate marketing, and that's a great place for it to be. I think implementing it in other activities, like other incentives, and the customer journey is a little bit kind of fraught. So that's where I'm kind of landing on that. I guess to kind of rattle off some things that we're seeing. Yeah.
Oh, I was curious, for the cash back, do you guys see that instant impact? That this is like the thing that Mike and the Postscript guys, like the they'll like constantly talk about is like, oh yeah, you see instant impact in this big way. I guess like how do you think about how that strategy should be used? And
yeah, I like those guys. I don't want to spicy take or anything, but I think like
I love Mike. Sorry, I'm like texting friends with him. So we're very good friends. So yeah.
I think we haven't had any brands that have stuck with utilizing it for anything but referral or affiliate purchases. I think any other activity like signing up for newsletter or like sharing your birthday, like brands that we're working with are keeping that with store credit. They're not using it as cash back. So the way our platform works, you can give cash back to a certain segment of people, or you can do it for a certain activity. And so typically it's very narrowly being used for affiliates. So they're the ones that if they share their birthday or if they make a friend buy or something like that, they get cash back, or it's just for the referral. It becomes a cash back mechanism. And we're implementing that through Stripe. So I think that's as far as we've seen it be used. And I think that that's just what brands feel safe with. And I think that makes a ton of sense. I think there's so much fraudulent behavior that can be done right now in the purchasing process that keeping it that narrow makes a ton of sense. What we are, I guess I'll like tease something out, which I didn't plan to do, but I'm going to do anyways. We've just recently done this integration, which allows people to convert their credits, or instead of getting store credit or cash back, getting credit to another company like Airbnb, hotels.com, Uber, basically this expansion of like alliances. So hypothetically speaking, you could say, sign up for our newsletter and get a $10 credit at Uber. Now, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how brands use this, how brands feel about it, and how it plays out, because it's a different type of expansion, particularly for brands that are only selling like one product and they're having a hard time getting their consumers to sign up for newsletter or make a referral or do something else to get them re-engaged. So I'm very curious to see, like, for example, let's say you sell mattresses. It's pretty hard and you want to kind of introduce pillows at some point, but during that window of time, you're really worried that the customer is not going to come back and remember you. You're going to send a bunch of emails, but you're like, I don't really know if this is going to work. I don't know if I can incentivize with a $10 discount on my pillow, if that's really going to move the needle. So we're integrating this thing where they could actually say, okay, it's $10 in credit to, Uber or 10 of these other entities that you could potentially be using it with. So we think that will be kind of interesting as an expansion of, this whole concept of like store credit versus cash back versus blah, blah, blah. Again, have me back in a month and I'll report back.
I love that, honestly.
Yeah. I'm interested. Like some of those offers sound like really good. So like, I wonder if you had that like on a pop-up, if the opt-in would shoot up, but the quality of the subscribers, there would be two different sides to that, where it's like
a Groupon effect almost.
Yeah, like it's super good offer, and so you just capture so many more people. But then you truly do see the people that were trying to just take advantage of it, because like you were saying, gamifying, like there's gamifying your customer journey, and then there's being gamified, like the consumer like plays the game better than you and exploits the value out of it.
So like I want walking me all the time. I'm not walking
yeah, exactly. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, my hope is that, and our recommendation would be like just to make it an expansion of your brand. Like if you're a brand that is selling travel products like suitcases, same thing. It's like there aren't suitcases don't really like do much, but like a discount at Airbnb, hotels.com, it's like an expansion of this is who we are as a brand. This is what's meaningful to us. It's more brand building,
I like that. And that's actually how I recommend people build out ancillary products, is what's a product that you can build around your core products that will either drive consumption, awareness, put it top of mind. So for example, like if you're selling Rashib's Happy Pills, we could make a really awesome pill container, right? That has your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, super low or super high margin, really low cost for us. And now we just send those out once you send $100 worth, or Bobby, you send them out once you sign up with a gift for purchase or a subscription, and now you can hold all your happy pills and these things. And so I think that's kind of one step removed where I don't have the product ability to launch that. But if it's something around my area, like the, again, suitcase with Airbnb or things of that nature, you know, I think that's a vibe. That's really interesting. Rashid, we're pushing up against it. Do you have anything else for these wonderful humans?
No, man.
Nothing?
Let's hit the wrap.
All right. Bobby, where can the people find you? Are you taking clients? This time's yours, my friend.
Yes. You can find me on Twitter, so Bobby Callaghan _, or you can go to Retentio. It's retention without the N. Retentio.agency. Yeah, we're boutique, so we only take on about 8 to 12 clients at a time. We do have like 1 or 2 more spots, but we're going to close up pretty soon because Q4 is approaching. We got to gear up.
The money months. Let's go.
We got to gear up.
Elise, how about you? How can people connect? How can people get more involved with Toki?
LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, Elise. And yeah, could also just book a demo and chat with me or someone else on my team, buildwithtoki.com.
Let's go. All right, boss man, drop the links. What do you got going on? What's happening? How can people follow you? Your whiteboard Wednesdays are objectively very good. And
they are.
Unbiased,
I consume them. They're good.
I'm learning stuff
Best
from
of
them.
the internet.
They're good. And I'm
Thank you.
a great work machine. And
look, I'll tease you guys with the next one.
Let's go.
I was reading it while you were moving. I was like looking over your shoulder.
I was just like, I came out of an interview and I was like, oh my God, I have this idea. I have to like write it down.
Let's go.
So I'm just Rishabh M. Jain on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and I will get trained by Rabah on the new pitch. So for today,
no, you hit the pitch, the wrong words, but it'll help a little bit. But yeah, so make sure to go to FERMATcommerce.com, go book a demo. We help you create funnels like you create ads. And so super easy peasy, everything from the landing page to custom PDPs to bespoke carts, whatever you need, we got for you. Go check it out. FERMATcommerce.com. We also have a wonderful newsletter that goes out every Monday called Geometry of Growth. This one that came out this morning was fantastic. You can sign up right on our website. And Bobby, Elise, Rashid, thank you guys so much for making the time. This was awesome. Thank you for all the questions. Reed, I will turn on my push notifications. Amza, you're wonderful. We even got Lex in the chat. So this is wonderful. We really appreciate all of you guys. And if you didn't catch all of this and you want to rewatch it, it'll be on our YouTubes and everything like that. But for now, that's it. Bobby, Elise, Rashid, thank you so much. And we'll see everybody later.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much.